And we're now being joined by Arsen Ostrovsky. I hope you can hear me now. My question to you is, how do you assess the situation on ground, and what can you tell us about the broader implications of the clashes?
Hi. Look, the situation on the ground now, as you can see behind me, is calm. I'm speaking to you from Tel Aviv. Last night, these skies were lit up with rockets after several hundred rockets were fired by the Hamas terrorists against Tel Aviv, Israel's most populous city. I can tell you personally, I spent the night in bomb shelters, in and out, with my children, with my baby and with my 4-year-old, my wife, my family. This was a harrowing night. In the last day and a half, we've had something like over 1,000 rockets fired from Gaza now, over 1,000 rockets. That is roughly about a minute and a half, every rocket every minute and a half, over 1.5 million Israelis within the firing range of rockets. Now, that is an extraordinary figure. No country in the world, India would not suffice, would not tolerate one rocket, nor would America, nor would any country in Europe, nor should Israel. And the blame for this rests entirely with the Palestinian Authority, with the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, who have incited this incessant and relentless wave of violence against Israel over the last weeks, starting with the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority cancelling the elections. This was inevitable. This was entirely predictable and a direct result of the Palestinian Authority internal politics.
Mr. Ostrovsky, I'm extremely saddened to hear that. I hope you and your family are safe at this point, and so are the other people there. The UN Security Council will hold another emergency meeting later today to discuss this escalating conflict. What can we expect on that front?
Look, what can we expect? I would want there to be a very clear condemnation of the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, as well as Islamic Jihad, for the indiscriminate firing of rockets against Israelis, civilians. What they're doing is a double war crime, hiding behind Palestinian civilians while firing against Israeli civilians. This is a war crime. It is unexcusable. There is no justification for that whatsoever. Israel, like any country in the world, has a right under international law to defend itself, and it shall defend itself. We all want calm here in Israel, but it certainly does not help when Hamas continue firing rockets indiscriminately and Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party continue to incite further violence and call for confrontation. So I would hope that the UN Security Council, in fact, any statement makes that very clear. There is no equivalence whatsoever between Hamas, which is seeking to create maximum damage and carnage, and Israel, which is undertaking its sovereign right to self-defense, as would India, as would every country in the world in these circumstances.
Right. And what can you tell us about the role of the international community and the extent of the impact of repeated international calls for calm here?
Look, the international community can call for calm as long as it wants, but it needs to direct those calls, one, to Iran, which is the regime that is funding and instructing Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and it needs to make that call to Ramallah. The Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas's party, have called for confrontation. This is not what the situation calls. Instead of stockpiling vaccines to fight COVID, the Palestinian leadership and including the Hamas have been stockpiling rockets and stones. So if the international community wishes to play a positive and constructive role, as they should, they need to make that very clear to the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas that they will not tolerate these provocations and these rockets being fired indiscriminately. Anything else, if the international community refuses to make clear denunciations like that, then I'm afraid that they are no more than aiding and abetting the situation that we're seeing here today.
All right. Mr. Ostrovsky, thank you so much for joining us at such a difficult time. We hope you stay safe, and thank you for joining us. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.